What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Finlit with Sal here. I hope you guys are all doing fantastic. Today, I'm going to be going through one of my most frequently asked questions on Instagram, and that is how you can get started investing so that you can start your wealth building journey. And I'm going to do so in 3 easy steps. But before we do that, just to cover our bases here, this video is not to be seen as financial advice or should not be construed as such. This is strictly for educational purposes. Now, with that out of the way, let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to make sure you do, and this is before even starting investing, is you're going to want to make sure that you have an appropriate amount of funds tucked away to take care of your current living expenses. This is typically known as a savings or an emergency fund. It is difficult to invest for the future when you're not taking care of your present situation today. Remember, quality of life today is just as, or in my opinion, more important than quantity later on in life. So make sure you're taking care of your situation today as well. Generally, the rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months worth of your living expenses, but that varies depending on the individual or their circumstance. I have my own take on this, but I'll be diving into that later on in the channel, so make sure you subscribe. Alright, so once you have an appropriate amount to take care of the now, then we can get started on the actual opening of the account. To start, the first thing you're going to want to do is pick a brokerage. Now, a brokerage, by definition, is just the company that you hold your accounts with. There are a lot of companies out there, there's a lot of reputable firms. Some of the more popular ones include Vanguard, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, Charles Schwab, and the list goes on and on. Now, at this point in the game, a lot of investors may get decision paralysis because they don't know which one to pick. But not you guys, because you've subscribed to this channel and you know I'm going to hook it up for you. In truth, a lot of these firms are designed the same way. They're all designed to give investors the opportunity to invest in the stock market, into different securities and such. So, the one thing that you're going to want to make sure you do is research the different companies and find what works best for you. It took me a while before I found the platform that worked for me, and I'm sure it's going to take you a couple tries to find out what works for you as well. Before jumping into anything, ask yourself a couple questions. What are you looking for out of a broker-dealer? What type of securities or type of investments do you want to get involved in? And then 3, just as an overall company, what do you value? Do you want a smooth app interface? Do you want good customer service because you don't really like using the computer and you'd rather just call in? These are all valid questions, and these are questions that you should ask yourself before picking a brokerage. It may take some trial and error, but that's okay. Trust me, I did my own fair share of trial and error, and luckily, I've learned from those experiences, and I'm sure you will too. With this channel, hopefully your learning curve is going to look a lot different than what mine did. All right. Once you've picked your brokerage house, what you're going to want to do next is decide what type of account you want to open. There are a lot of accounts out there, but don't be alarmed, don't be scared in any way, because I'm going to talk you through how you can think of these. For the sake of this video, I want you to think of the accounts you can open in 2 groups. 1 are non-retirement accounts, and 2 are going to be retirement accounts. What you need to ask yourself is, what are you saving for? What are you investing for? For a lot of people, it's retirement, but that may not always be the case, so this is an honest conversation you're going to want to have with yourself before making any decisions on what to open. Here's a quick overview of the different types of accounts, and hopefully this will give you some direction as to what you should be opening. Non-retirement accounts are accounts that we would call taxable. What that means is you get taxed on anything that appreciates in that account. Let's say I found a stock that was called XYZ, and I thought this stock was fantastic and I wanted to invest in it. I bought that share for $10. Now, let's say that share goes up to $30. If I were to sell out of the stock, I would be responsible for paying capital gains tax on $20 worth of appreciation. Now, the amount of tax that you will pay is going to depend on how long you have held that security. If you held it for 1 year or less, you're going to be taxed at what you call short-term capital gains. And that's typically ordinary income, so whatever your federal tax rate is. If, however, you held it for longer than 1 year, you would get what is called long-term capital gains treatment, and those taxes tend to be lower than the short-term counterpart. Now, on the other hand, we have what you would call a retirement account. These are typically what you see as IRAs. And what an IRA stands for is individual retirement account. One is called a traditional IRA, while the other is called a Roth IRA. For the sake of this video, I just want you to remember one thing. When do I want to realize the tax benefits? With a traditional IRA, you're essentially taking a tax benefit today in the form of a tax deduction. You are then going to be pushing back the taxes until you retire later on in life, assuming you're above the age of 59 and a half. Now, with a Roth IRA, you are paying the taxes on it today at your current tax rate and letting it grow tax-free later on in life, hopefully in retirement. Now, that would be assuming you're above the age of 59 and a half and the account's been open for longer than 5 years. Here are a couple things to think of as you're working through what account to open. A lot of times, if you don't have a retirement account open, depending on your situation, it's probably in your best interest to open up a retirement account because you want to realize tax benefits. And considering for the year of 2021, you can only contribute $6,000 per year if you're under the age of 50, or $7,000 if you're above the age of 50, you might as well start chipping away at that amount because once time passes, you can never go back and recontribute. If you're trying to differentiate between which types of accounts to open, just ask yourself this. Do I think taxes are going to go up in the future, or do I think they're going to go down in the future? That should give you a good direction as to whether or not you want to pay the taxes now or you want to pay the taxes later. Another question you can ask yourself is, do I think I'm going to be making more money here today, or do I think I'm going to be making more money here in the future? That is also a good indicator as to what you want to pay taxes on. There isn't a blanket answer for any of this. It's obviously dependent on your situation and what other employee retirement plans you may have in place, if any. And if any of this sounded confusing to you, don't worry. I'm actually going to be making a more in-depth video regarding IRAs specifically and how to differentiate between suitability for those. All right, last step here. Let's say you picked your brokerage house. Let's say you've picked your investment account. Now, step 3 is going to be making sure that you have the investments in mind that you're going to want to be involved in. There are a lot of investments out there, so make sure you do your research. Generally speaking, as an individual beginner, you may find it most beneficial to look into things such as index ETFs or index funds, along with certain mutual funds that look to track indexes. Some of the benefits of this are that you have funds that are professionally managed and look to track indexes such as the S&P 500, the Russell 2000, Russell 1000. There's so many indexes out there that the list can go on and on. When you're looking at funds like these and the different holdings that you may have, it's important to keep in mind these 3 things. 1, what is your risk tolerance? Do you find yourself able to tolerate a little bit more risk to see those gains, or would you consider yourself conservative by nature and not like to see that value fluctuate very much? 2, what is your time horizon on this? Typically, it would look something along the lines of 30, 40 years if you're my age, because that's about the time you may be retiring. But everyone's going to have a different time horizon depending on what they want to invest for. Which brings me to the 3rd point. What are your goals with this money? What are your goals for the account? These are all questions that you should have outlined that will determine what you want to invest in. The longer the time horizon, the more affordable risk can be for you because you have time to make up any losses that may occur. But like I mentioned earlier in the video, quality and peace of mind is just as important as gains. So you don't want to be awake at 3 a.m. in the morning wondering how your account's doing. And believe me guys, I love finance and I love investing as much as the next person, but I do believe in peace of mind and I do believe in quality of life first and foremost always. So like I said guys, have some of these honest conversations with yourself. Follow the steps in this video. Make sure you subscribe because I'm going to be showing more and more content as we go and as we get deeper into our personal finance journey. And like always guys, I look forward to getting lit with everyone.